Today, we're going to look at the presidency of James Monroe, the fifth president of the United States, who served from 1817 until 1825. James Monroe's presidency was known as the era of good feelings. The United States was not at war, and there was very little political fighting going on within the country. There was still a sense of nationalism after the War of 1812. This was a time of cooperation in order to improve transportation by building roads, bridges, and canals. Henry Clay proposed the American system. This is where protective tariffs would pay for these improvements. The Erie Canal in New York and the National Road were early transportation projects meant to improve the nation's transportation system. Now, if you look at this picture, this is a picture of the Erie Canal. And all a canal is just a man-made waterway. The National Road connected Wheeling, Virginia to Vandalia, Illinois. This made shipping goods faster and easier. It also encouraged interstate trade. In 1824, a Supreme Court case had a major impact on interstate trade. Interstate trade is trade between states. In Gibbons v. Ogden, Chief Justice John Marshall ruled that Congress and the federal government could regulate interstate trade. During Monroe's administration, the United States continued to expand. In 1819, the United States purchased Florida from Spain for $5 million. In the Adams-Onis Treaty, the United States also recognized that Texas was part of Spanish territory. So in the Adams-Onis Treaty, the United States got Florida, and then they promised to leave Texas to the Spanish. Another event of significance during Monroe's administration was another Supreme Court case. In McCulloch v. Maryland, John Marshall ruled that the United States does have the right to create a national bank and that federal law is superior, which means more important, than state law. But during Monroe's time in office, problems did start to arise. Sectionalism began to divide the country. Sectionalism is where each part of the country looks out for its own interest. So if you look at this picture here, you see the United States is divided up into three main sections: the West, the North, and the South. Each section of the United States had its own spokesperson who represented the viewpoint of each section. A viewpoint is the way you personally see things. Daniel Webster represented the viewpoint of the North. He opposed slavery but would compromise if it meant keeping the Union together. So here you see a picture of Daniel Webster, and he represented the viewpoint of the North. Henry Clay represented the viewpoint of the West. He was concerned how slavery would affect the Western territories. Clay was known as the Great Compromiser. So here's Henry Clay, and he represented the viewpoint of the West. John C. Calhoun represented the viewpoint of the South. He believed in slavery and states' rights. So here's John C. Calhoun, and he represented the viewpoint of the South. In 1820, the first of many sectional issues over slavery happened when Missouri wanted to join the United States as a slave state. Northern states did not want this because it would upset the balance of power in Congress in favor of slave states. Henry Clay helped see the Missouri Compromise go into effect. Missouri would be a slave state and Maine a free state, and this kept the balance of power in Congress. During Monroe's presidency, many countries in Central and South America were winning their independence from European countries. So here's Central America, and this is all South America. In 1823, President Monroe issued his Monroe Doctrine. This warned European nations that they cannot set up colonies in Latin America or interfere in their affairs anymore. Monroe also stated that the United States would protect North and South America from any European influence. Under the presidency of James Monroe, the United States stayed out of war and continued to acquire territories. But issues such as sectionalism began to cause cracks and division within the country.